So now that you have learned how to build a form and keep it in sync with the state, let's take a look at a few common errors. First, I'm going to remove the username property. Let's see what happens. Back in the browser, we don't have any errors in the console, but the moment I type something here, we get this warning. A component is changing an uncontrolled input of type text to be controlled. Now, this error message might be confusing, but let me explain what's going on here. We removed the username property. So if we try to access account.username, we'll get undefined. Undefined and null cannot be used as values of a controlled element. In other words, here when we are setting the value of our username field, if we pass undefined or null here, React will not see this element as a controlled element. So this element is going to have its own state, it's going to have its own value, but the moment we type the first character, because we're listening to this change and we're updating the state, now account.username becomes A. So then we're passing A as the value of this input field, and that's why we get this warning. So initially we started with an uncontrolled element, and all of a sudden we're converting that to a controlled element. So that's the reason React is giving us this warning. It's telling us to decide between using a controlled or uncontrolled input element. So one way or another. We'll run into a similar issue if we pass null here. So as I said, null and undefined cannot be used as a value of controlled elements. So with this, when we load the page, we get a different warning. Value prop on input should not be null. Consider using an empty string to clear the component or undefined for uncontrolled components. So this is the reason initially I set username to an empty string. So as a rule of thumb, whenever you're building forms, you should initialize the properties of your state object either to an empty string or some value that you get from the server.